London, residing in Los Angeles with his wife and 2 kids, Steven Silver has been a professional working artist, character designer, and teacher working in the animation industry for over 30 years. He developed intellectual properties for some of the largest media companies in the world, such as Disney, Warner Brothers, Nickelodeon, Sony, Mad Magazine, Real Effects, Bento Box, Hasbro, Universal, DreamWorks, and more. Steven is responsible for the visual character development and design of some of animation's most iconic shows, including Disney's Kim Possible, Nickelodeon's Danny Phantom, and Disney Clerks, the animated series, to just name a few. Steven discovered that his true passion in life was teaching, and when he decided that he wanted to pursue this full-time, he created Silver Drawing Academy, where his goal is to help build artists' confidence and skill to prime them for fulfilling art careers, and to remind them how fun it is to draw. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Steven. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And so we will get started the same way we always get started, which is to ask you, would you please share with us your origin story? Can you tell us how your creative journey got started?
Yeah, it's really bizarre, really, when I go back in time and people can't even believe that this was a true story, but it's a true story. I'm originally from London, England. That's why I kind of talk funny. And when I was around 6 years old, I was looking out my bedroom window and I saw something on my backyard, a book of some sort. And I went downstairs and I picked it up, and inside that book, it was filled with original sketches, original portraits, landscapes. I don't know how it got there, whose it was, why it was there. But from the time I grabbed that book, that's when I really started drawing. So, and it's only now that I look back and realize why it was there, you know, for me to be on this journey and to do what I'm doing now with my art. And so that's where it started. And then from there was just practicing cartoons all the time. I was just watching a lot of Hanna-Barbera. That's where I was just getting a lot of my influence from. Scooby-Doo, the Flintstones, Tom and Jerry. And then I moved to America at the age of 10 years old and discovered, I was at my cousin's house and discovered a book on Norman Rockwell. And that was my delving into illustration, like, whoa, who is this? What is this? And that piqued my interest in illustration, and then was just always drawing, just never took any real classes or anything. And then started drawing for my high school newspaper. And that eventually led me just to doing a lot of caricatures, which led me to working as a caricature artist at SeaWorld in San Diego. So I was doing the theme parks. And that's where I was getting just a lot of my experience as an artist and learning to do caricature. And then eventually would just show up to a lot of events. If I heard there was going to be a cartoonist coming to talk at a place, I would show up, and there was a cartoonist, an animator from a storyboard artist from the show called Freakazoid, who was doing a talk at Warner Brothers. And I saw him. I would take my portfolio with me everywhere just to show anyone, get some advice, feedback. And he said, hey, your stuff's pretty good. It's not great. You know, keep working on it. But, you know, hit me up sometime. And it took me about a year to build up the confidence to get in touch with him. And he invited me up to Warner Brothers to show him my work. And he said, hey, you know what? You got some really cool stuff. They just fired a character designer on a show called Hysteria, which was a very caricature-driven show on historical characters. And he took my portfolio upstairs and dropped it off, and the director saw it, and they gave me a call back about a week later. And that's how my life got started in the animation industry. But I was always doing, you know, caricatures and caricature events. But that's really the origin of where I kind of just started and came up from and ended up doing what I'm doing.
That is an awesome story. I had never heard about this faded book that kicked everything off in such a storied career that you've had, Steven. And I want to dig in a little bit more on that kind of pre-first animation job a little bit more, because I think like a lot of people have maybe misconceptions about what it takes to break into the industry. Things have changed a little bit more where you're less likely to get the call to walk into a studio to show your portfolio. But I know, you do a ton of portfolios at events, at conventions, but when it's not you and there's other artists that are showrunners or working on shows, what advice would you give to people looking to get into the industry now that you're more on the hiring side and you're on the other side of the table, if you will?
Yeah, the evolution of all of this has just really changed. When I first started at Warner Brothers, I don't even think there was a recruiter at that time. It was basically it was before the internet, really, right? It was before all this stuff. This was back in 1997. And what you had to do was always just physically show up with a portfolio. You'd hear that maybe you knew someone and, a friend of yours, something would happen. Hey, drop off your portfolio. And that's usually how it went. So you'd have those big black portfolios and whatnot. And when I dropped off my portfolio, I went to the art store, but I couldn't afford and didn't want to pay $40 for a leather portfolio. So I ended up just making my own portfolio out of wood. It was kind of weird. I kind of like took some thin wood and I took a engraving pen, like a heat engraving, pen, and I just engraved in it and I put some ring binders in it and I attached my artwork and I dropped that off. And what happened was, just in a sea of black portfolios, they used to walk in with these, what they were called dollies, where you'd have a dolly and it had all the black portfolios on top of it. They'd wheel that into the director's office or art director, and they'd have to go through all the portfolios. In that case, when my portfolio was dropped off to that director, it was amongst a bunch of other black portfolios, but he saw it and said, what the hell is this wood thing? It was very different, right? And he said it was at the bottom of the pile when he told me, but he looked at it and was intrigued by it. And that kind of gave me the leg up. And then you end up getting a test. The studios at that time would give tests where they want to just see if you could match the show style. And I had to design like 3 different characters in their already pre-existing show style. And I did. And so that's what ended up getting me that job. And then just fast forward into the future more with what happens now is there are no more physical portfolio drop-offs. It's all online. You want to make sure that you have a website online that is personal to you. And I always advise people, as much as I like ArtStation, don't show an ArtStation portfolio. There's just too much other competition on there. So there's also other things where you don't see the full extent of all the images that are on your page. When you click on an ArtStation page, you might have several other images below that. So it's not really a true representation. And plus it's very easy for someone just to go, that designer or storyboard artist, okay, let me look at this other person that's in ArtStation up there. Let me click on that person, right? So you can get very distracted and go down that rabbit hole. So it's very important to make sure that you have just your own website and that you're very clear on what it is that you want to do. You got to be a chameleon in this industry today. And what I mean by that is not that you have to be a character designer, storyboard artist, prop designer, you don't have to do everything. But what you need to do is, to say I'm going in as character designer, I just want to make sure that I'm showing a wide range of style variation, that I could do a preschool style, that I could do a primetime animated style, action adventure, squash and stretch, whatever that may be, that you're showing that wide range. And that's what's going to be extremely important today when putting together a portfolio. And a lot of times you always want to make sure that LinkedIn is a great place for artists just to cruise through that and prowl and see what opportunities are showing up on that. But make sure that you're following all the different studios from Disney, Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, their job sites. So say like Disney could have like Disney jobs. you go there and you click the alert. Make sure that you always click the alert so that you get notified. So every time there's a new posting, and the same place like LinkedIn is a great place. Indeed is a great place, where Glassdoor is another good place. And just make sure you're getting job alerts from there. And then again, you're applying, but you're getting thrown into the masses. And that's something that happens. So this is why it's so important just to make sure that you do show up to conventions where people in the art industry are going to be, where you get to meet them face to face, where they gets to be more of that name recognition. Like, oh, I remember you. I've seen you before. Your name sounds familiar. And that goes a long way. Otherwise, following them on LinkedIn and getting their names and just, hey, I just saw that you guys posted for a job opening for this job. I want to, again, here's my portfolio, here's my email, and just give them all the good stuff. So those are things that I would absolutely do to just make sure that you're seen and that you're not always just thrown into the mix. There could be 1,000 portfolio submissions just for one job out there. So it's very important just to keep staying connected. Your Instagram, social, make sure that you're showing what you do, not showing what you ate for dinner, and just showing your production work. And like, look, I want to be a character designer, but here's all my production drawings that I've done, and recruiters and different artist agencies, different clients. That's how they find you. And more when I talk to people all the time, I'm always fascinated. How did you get your job? And the stories go from A to Z, and how those jobs sort of happen. And I've heard so many of them like, no, they just saw me on LinkedIn. They just saw my artwork on Instagram, and they reached out to me, and one thing led to another. But that sort of like gives you a sense of what to do, thinking about the portfolio.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think what I'm hearing is there is a certain level of seriousness you have to take, even the job application process, right? There's the seriousness you need for your craft, but then also when you are looking for employment, there is a lot of things that you're doing to increase your chances because it's so competitive. Am I kind of getting that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so much about, as artists, we're responsible for creating our own exposure. We can't rely on other people, right? Just say, hey, do this for me for free and I'll give you all this exposure and that, right? So people are trying to take advantage of artists a lot, but it is up to us to really, in today's day and age, in the 21st century, really, you got to brand yourself. You got to just really set up who you are. What do you do? What's your voice? And there's an audience for it. And you don't know where that audience is going to be, how you're going to find them. It could be an audience that you find on Reddit. You all of a sudden you can have a whole audience that just through Reddit, you do a post of something and that can attract a whole world of people that go, man, maybe you draw zombie cats and they go, holy smokes, man, I love zombie cats. And all of a sudden now you're just getting an audience for zombie cats. And then you hear about a convention, a zombie convention or a horror show. So you always want to just stay connected and just constantly putting your stuff out there, and even just showing up at street fairs. I mean, this is what artists have to do, and not just wait in line. And this is something that I'm just always telling artists, is just like, everyone's trying to get in the animation industry, but don't be that just waiting in line. Everyone's getting in line, waiting to be selected. And there could be 1,000 people applying and they're only hiring that one job or those 3 jobs. So make sure you're doing stuff as much as possible. And that's why social media plays a huge role. And it's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's like you're in the business, you are doing what you're doing, and it's just, you got to just keep up with it and make sure that you're consistent. There's a consistent with it too. So people always know, people feel comfortable when they know, oh, every Monday I know that I'm going to be able to listen to this thing or watch this thing, right? And that's important. Constantly putting yourself out there. And I know it's a lot of work, and it requires a bit of a business mindset or that marketing mindset, which a lot of artists are terrified of and don't want to be involved. But luckily, there's a lot of platforms now that are building things for artists, like with the print on demand sites. So there's so many websites there where they take care of everything for you. Just, you're not getting the full amount of money, right? Getting a piece of the action, but at least they'll kind of, put it out there, and you can start to get seen a little bit more.
I love this advice. I love this what you're talking about. It's fabulous, like being this whole hustler and controlling your destiny. And when you were telling the story, you made me think of something I haven't thought in, oh my God, I don't even want to know how long. When John K. left Ren and Stimpy, he created his own studio, if you remember the times I'm talking. Yeah. Rick's used to me asking questions in long story format. And I was an artist, and I brought my portfolio, and when you started that, my brain went here. And I dropped off. I was so excited. I got invited to drop off my portfolio to John K. Yay. And I walked in the room and I dropped it off in the pile, right?
Yeah.
And then they said, come back in 30 minutes. And I was like, yay, I'm coming back in 30 minutes. And they go, who are you? Christopher Filippo. Here. And there was no like, thank you, no nothing. And it just devastated me. Like, it's your first one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So so I'm curious, can you talk through people, because there's a part we don't touch on. How do you continue to go that day you drop off the portfolio and it doesn't happen? How do you keep motivated? How do you keep going? How do you keep this passion?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing. There's a word that I've sort of really stumbled upon in like the last 4 years that's really resonated with me and sticks with me for really everything I do. And it's a word that I was discovering just in a lot of philosophy and a lot of people that I read on, or when I'm seeing documentaries or whatever it may be. And that one word is surrender. And that surrender isn't about giving up. It's just about surrendering and accepting a situation that comes, and just knowing that we can't please everyone. Not everyone's going to want us all the time, that we're going to get ghosted. We're going to get rejected. This is just all part of the process, but it's the artists that just keep moving forward. Because I remember one of my heroes growing up that I became a friend of mine was Mort Drucker from Mad Magazine. And he told a story just about, you could have 100 portfolios that sort of like get submitted to someone, and all of a sudden, out of those 100, 50% of those people get rejected. Right. So 50% of those people may get rejected, but so few of them after that first rejection aren't even going to reapply. They're just done. And then you're going to get that other 50% that, okay, they get to the next phase and then they get rejected, but they're just like, and then some of them may go, okay, I'm done. I got rejected, but there'll be a percentage of them that will say, you know what? I'm going to reapply. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to better myself and reapply. The moral of the story really is that at the end of the day, there's maybe about 10% of people that are really just going to keep going. So your competition isn't that it's hundreds of thousands. It's maybe really that 10%, because it's those people that are willing just to keep not giving up and just keep going. And I think it's just having that state of mind and philosophy that, oh, well, man, it didn't work out. And I was talking to an actor one time, and he said, man, I go on all these auditions and you get rejected over and over and over again. And it's just the nature of the business, but it's not about you. It's just that you may not have been just, again, that right height, that right width, or just maybe your tone and your voice wasn't right, but it's not you. It's not that you're a horrible actor. It's just that it just wasn't the right thing. And I think if we can learn to accept that and surrender to this, that, I dropped it off and I got rejected, but you know what? I'm going to try it again. And I think having that not giving up attitude, like that boxer in the boxing ring, right? Getting knocked down, but getting back up, and that whole thing. It's what we have to do for ourselves, and not let these other people be the victors and be the winners, be the ones who are just saying, you're no good. It's just like, screw you, I'm going to try something else. That's what it's about.
I love that so much. And what comes up for me is kind of the concept of the mismatch, right? And I think that's what I'm hearing in your answer, is that it's not about the quality of your work necessarily. It's just not a good fit, maybe at this time, for this role, for this project, for this studio. It could be any single thing, because there's so few people who are going to get chosen for that role or get hired, right? And so I know I've talked to a lot of hiring managers before, and they've talked about how it's almost easier to look for reasons not to hire someone, because at a certain point, there's a lot of really great artists out there, and you're just like, well, I can take one. So what can I look for to weed people out, as opposed to looking for the one person who's the perfect fit?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you can see that pretty clearly in a lot of portfolios just straight away. You just kind of know. And one of the biggest reasons, just going back just a little bit, why people don't even get hired for specific jobs in the animation industry, if we're just talking about animation, is it's usually always a style fit. It's just like, yeah, I just don't see the right style. They can draw, you can draw really well, but I don't, not that you're putting in fan art, but they don't see that sort of sensibility. Maybe it's really squash and stretch, and all you have in your portfolio, talking about John Kay, but all you have in your portfolio is more just real technical action adventure looking work or things like that, right? So that's something that'll just kind of stop you. It's not a reflection that you're a horrible artist or draftsman. You're just missing something. And then on the opposite, I think for the people whose portfolios and drawings aren't up to par, hopefully you can get some solid criticism from a professional. And this is why you want to show up and network and go to events to show your portfolio, to get professionals, not just your family members and everyone else who will tell you how great it is, right? We can get that a lot. I meet with a lot of people and look at portfolios and they feel pretty confident in their work, but all they've been told by is their relatives how great they are, who can't draw a straight line with a ruler, right? Oh, you're amazing. You're so wonderful. And then they have this delusion of what's really needed. And then they show the professional, and the professional, if they're honest, will say, oh man, you got to back to the drawing board, and you got to be willing to accept that critique and be open. And I feel like there's a lot of artists who don't. Unfortunately, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that your figure drawing it's not as good as it could be. Your construction is off. You need to work on your hands. You got to work on your expressions. Your compositions aren't as powerful as they could be. So I think it's being open to all this is what's going to keep advancing you and moving you forward, right?
Okay. I love you. The best advice I ever got one day, I walked into Marvel and I showed Harry Candelario my portfolio, and he looked at me, goes, "You suck." Like, and it was the most like, wait, but I just graduated college. Oh, dude, you suck. But here, like you're talking about, here, work on this. You need this. You need this. Like, and I think you're right. A lot of people don't take that criticism and absorb it,
yeah,
and grow from it.
It's very true. Yeah.
So now let's do your career. That was mine. What was yours? Who might have been your Harry Candelario, and what was the thing that they said to you when you early on?
Yeah, it's been so many years now. Because I started so young, I was only 18 years old when I started my professional career doing caricatures in theme parks. But I had been already studying drawing from a lot of Mad Magazine, Jack Davis, Mort Drucker, and I was building that strength. So when I came in, I was around other 18 and 19-year-olds who weren't necessarily at that level. So they were actually looking at me like, hey, we want you to teach me. I would say the biggest thing where that happened a lot, because again, even my drawings were still very crude, right? I wasn't by no means at that level. But in caricature, so many stories where people was even worse. You'd do the drawing, you'd flip it over and show it to them, and they'd look at it with just no expression and just get up and walk away without paying. I had people who took the drawing and ripped it up right in front of my face, threw it away. I would have just people just behind me telling me how much the drawing sucked and looked nothing like their friend that I was drawing. So I was taking all the abuse doing caricatures, really, but it was the greatest training ground ever. Any artist out there that ever wants to say, hey, I want to make a living as an artist and maybe get their feet wet into this, learn how to do caricature, go start doing it at theme parks or wherever you can. You'll not only make some great money doing it, make a great living, fairs, street fairs all over that place, but a great experience. It trains you to not only deal with rejection, it trained me to work really fast. So it helped me build a very thick skin. And so when I got into animation and I'm working and I was turning in some things and my director would say, nah, it's just not working. I need you to redraw it. I wasn't offended by it. There was no I had very thick skin that I could handle that. So I think it is important for artists to get experience that. You be rejected, have your drawings ripped up. I think it's helpful, but those would be my stories.
When you said you were a caricature artist at a theme park, I was definitely like, oh, I bet you that was really rough. Like, just because I think a lot of people are just so used to also creating in isolation, and that's such a public, performative kind of side of things that I know for a lot of creatives who tend to skew introverted, that can be a very terrifying experience. And so, and just out of curiosity, would you consider yourself more of an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm more of an extrovert. Let's just put it this way. When I'm around artists and people like-minded, I'm very open and outgoing. But if I'm in a situation, with my wife and we go to some event or something, party where there's people that I don't really know, they're not artists, I find myself definitely more of an introvert. Yeah, in those situations.
Just curious. That was like not a scheduled question, but
yeah. But I've been doing so much public speaking. I do so much teaching and workshops that I'm just so used and comfortable around people now that it's definitely not a thing where I'm just hiding off in a corner ever. Yeah.
That's a great segue, because for anyone who's listening that doesn't know, Stephen runs an entire academy, and for a lot of people, to your point, like the public speaking, you speak, you teach workshops, you do video. That's scary for a lot of people, I think, still, even in kind of the Instagram age of things. But could you walk us through, like, how was it for you when you first got started? Because I know, like, now you're super comfortable. I'm sure this is like your millionth podcast that you've been on, but when you're just kind of getting started and you're like, oh, I got to put myself on video, or I have to go do, someone's invited me to go speak on a stage, and there's the cameras and stuff, like, could you kind of maybe walk us through how you've sort of acclimated or how you've approached getting to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely very nerve-wracking, and I was very nervous, and I would get just horrible butterflies in my stomach building up, and it's just all part of the process. But I think it's like with everything that we do, from public speaking to getting our artwork to the level we want, is just persistence and just doing it something over and over again, and that's where you just start to build up it's this like muscle memory, right? You build up this strength. You go to the gym for the first time. Oh my God, lifting this certain weight is like way too hard. It's too much. I'm straining my muscles. Oh my God, I'm done working out. My arms hurt and all the muscles hurt. But after a while, you keep doing it. It doesn't hurt so much anymore. And I think that's really what it just comes down to. It's just perseverance and just making sure that you're just repeating things and not just doing it once and calling it quits. I think a lot of people do that. I feel like they just give up too soon. They'll try something for 1 or 2 weeks and give up, as opposed to, I'm going to do this for the next 6 months. And that repetition the repetition of it all is just so important. And then eventually it just gets so much easier. There may still from time to time, depends on the size of the crowd. I think if I would ever like do a TED talk or something like that, I feel like I would freeze up in a way. I'd be so nervous doing that. I do still find today, sometimes if there's a camera, like a physical camera just on me, if someone wanted me, okay, I just need you to say these lines. So it could be for something. Here's the camera. Okay, just say these lines. And I just botch it every time. Just oh my God, I can't remember the words. Repeat it again. What am I supposed to say? I'm definitely just more of a free. I love just even this. It's just, there's no rehearsal. There's nothing. And that's where I feel like I always excel at, is if I'm able just to speak from the heart and just say what I know. And the big thing that I would say with teaching and doing anything that you do is, I've met a lot of artists, have come to me, how, getting up there, what should I talk? I say, just talk about what you know. Talk about what you know. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're not trying to say words of other people that you're not really familiar with. Just talk about your experience, and it's your story. And when you tell of your story, it just becomes so much easier and better. And then also, of course, there is that, I think preparation builds confidence just in general. When you're prepared going into something, where if I'm going to teach a class, I go, okay, I don't know what I'm going to say, but the theory of it is based around this. Okay, that's my sort of like seed. And then I can just go on from there. But I think that's the most important thing, is just speak about things that you know, that you're comfortable with, and it'll be a lot more natural for you.
Perfect advice, because that exceeds art as well. And I love the idea of like you put the little seed out there and I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I kind of know what I'm going to do.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And perfect trick to get through that stuff, which makes my mind wander, which it does a lot. When you approach a drawing or you approach art, there's and I've watched you draw stuff like, I'm going to do this. And it's like, where am I going to go? How does it go? It's kind of this fluid, which when I watch you, that seems easy to you. So everybody has this like easy and this hard part when they're doing this. I'm curious for yourself, what's the easy part or quote and the quote hard part that still gives you a little challenge every day?
Yeah, I'd say like the easy part is I draw extremely loose. I write about it in my book. I call it just kind of like throwing up on the page, right? You just let it out, it's just in that rough form, just move that hand, and that can be a lot easier for me. And then just getting to the more of the technical now, when I want to start just refining it, well, now I just got to just tap into my memory banks, my knowledge, where I'm just thinking about the clarity. I'm thinking about my negative space. I'm thinking about avoiding tangents. I'm thinking about balance. All these other art things are coming into play. So that can be just a little bit more, a little harder. And I think I've done so much cleanup in my life and I've had to flush out characters a lot. But now, where my true love is in just the rough phase of it all. Because I always feel like it's more work just to have to now clean it up and tighten it and just compose it. So that's always still a bit of the struggle for me, is just composing. If there's multiple things going on, that just requires more effort. But just usually now, I think just drawing, it is just very just natural and easy. But I've done it so much, and especially with the face, the human body. I've just done it so much. Again, that's where the repetition of it, where it just eventually gets easy. You don't have to think so much about what the lines you're going to make. So when I do caricatures, especially when I do private parties, so people hire me. A lot of my career before I got into animation, my business was doing parties. Besides just the theme parks, I'm being hired at trade shows. I'm being hired at weddings, bar mitzvahs, birthday parties, you name it. But now I got a whole line of people. I have to draw someone's caricature in under 3 minutes with a cleanup line. So, but that's what I can do now. I can draw someone's caricature within under 3 minutes and boom, 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 and they'll be happy with what they get. It just becomes easier because I've done it 1,000 times.
I love the idea or the through line with you, Stephen, of just like that persistence and repeated practice leading to mastery. And I think a lot of people are likely familiar with your career, but just for people that aren't, could you now take us? You've now got your first show at WB. And so what did that look like from there towards like leading Kim Possible and doing a lot of the other shows that maybe people of a younger generation might be more familiar with?
Sure. Yeah. So working in animation and a lot of studios in general, the most important thing you can do in any industry when you're working is to make friends and just meet people and not hide away and not be in an office and just close your door. You want to make sure that people see who you are and what you do. And when I was working at Warner Brothers, again, making the friends that I made at the studio, they have their connections, people that I don't know, right? So this is where all the networking really comes in. And when I was at Warner Brothers, one of my friends he said, hey, one of my friends is working over at Disney, just got hired to work on this Kevin Smith's Clerks, the animated series that they're doing. And they were just trying to figure it out. They didn't have the designs. They had gone through a bunch of designers. And he said, and this guy was a production coordinator. And he said, if you know anyone, let me know. So my friend said, hey, they're looking for a character designer. He put me in contact with this guy at Disney. I dropped off my portfolio to him, went to the director. They gave me a test. And that's how I ended up getting hired, ended up being the lead designer for Clerks, the animated series, which was very short-lived. We only did 6 episodes. And then from that, they moved me on to another show in the interim called The Weekenders because that show that you could either lay you off. It's working in animation. It's a very nomadic life. You're just hop, skipping and jumping from one studio to the next if you're lucky. And you might be on one project for a year. You might be on it for 2 years, and then it's off to the next show. And so they put me on this show called Weekenders. And that show I was on, and again, had to switch a whole different style. And I didn't enjoy it. It was already the show was in its second season, and the designs, it just wasn't appealing to me. And while I was on that show, my director that I worked with on Clerks said, hey, these guys pitched this show called Kim Possible. We need some designs, development. Can you spare some time and do some development for us? So I did that, some development. They gave me a brief script and I worked, and they really liked what I was doing. So then they ended up pulling me off of the Weekenders and made me the lead designer on that show. Like, hey, we designed the whole show, right? So now I'm coming in, designing all the characters from just the script and breaking it down, getting notes back and forth. And you go through that whole process, and eventually you find the style and you hit on what you do. And then things would just lead up from there. I left Disney, and a friend of mine was before, Kim Possible was ending. We did 4 seasons, but I think this was maybe after the second season. I did all 4 seasons, but I think one of the seasons, I was doing just freelance, just all from home while I was working full time at another studio. So a friend of mine, while I was on Kim Possible, said, hey, this guy, Butch Hartman, over at Nickelodeon, who created Fairly Odd Parents, created another show called Danny Phantom, and he needs a designer. They don't have any look for it. Go meet with him. So I met with him. He looked through my artwork and said, hey, I'd love to hire you as a test, just to come up, see what you come up with. And I came up with a bunch of ideas, and then they hired me full time again as a lead designer. I came over to Nickelodeon to work on Danny Phantom. And then there were other designers that ended up getting hired on that. So it ended up being, there were 2 of us all the time balancing that show. We'd always split up the shows, right? There'd be so many villains and so many characters. So I did Danny Phantom. Then I went over to Sony Feature Animation, where I did development for a year on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which was my first intro into feature film. And that was a fun experience, a hell of a drive, from there in Culver City and where I live in Simi Valley, big drive. And so, those were the shows. And then I've worked on Scooby-Doo, a bunch of different Scooby-Doos. And most of my work actually I've been working from home probably for about the last 17, 18 years. But it was just by choice because I had kids and I wanted to watch them grow up. So that was a major factor of it. And then I was, at the time in the industry, I was just doing just a lot of my own stuff. I got into self-publishing. I got into teaching. I was just doing all my own things. I had multiple, and like I like to tell people, you want to have multiple campfires going, right? Multiple little fires. Don't just rely on one thing. Set yourself up for multiple little things. For one thing ends, you got something else to move into. And that's how I've always just sort of lived and thrived, was by having multiple projects always going on. And that's what I really did. And then that's when a couple years ago, I decided, I always thought I wanted to be a recruiter and do that. And that's when I ended up getting hired at Disney to be a recruiter over there for the television animation. And now I'm just really focusing full time now on just my online school, the Silver Drawn Academy, because the teaching, I realized my true passion, the thing I really love more than anything, is just teaching and helping people and guiding them. I feel like I've had a lot of experience, not only on the art side, but the business side, the entrepreneurship side. So I want to spend my rest, I'm 51 years old now. I just want to spend the rest of my years just advancing people, giving them the tools to help them with the mindset, and give them the right tools and the motivation and the know-how, just not to be just a character designer, but I don't care what business. You want to create your own graphic novel, you want to create your own podcast, you want to create your own, you name it. There's a mindset behind that. And that's where I'm putting a lot of my energy today.
We both love this 100%. I think as someone else with an education background, I am just like, yes, yes, yes. Steve, can you maybe share a little bit more about how your school even got started? Because Like, I love the idea of, the multiple streams of income, the different campfires, as you said. And how did that maybe come about for you? Was it a really conscious choice? And were you like, I want to start a school? Or was it more of like, oh, here's a teaching opportunity that leads to another, and oh, yeah, maybe I should start a school eventually?
Yeah, it really all started when I was working professionally I was at Disney, and at the time there was a school in Sherman Oaks. They had a lot of different art classes there. I can't remember the name of it, but they had figure drawing and they had concept stuff and painting. And do you know the name of it, Christopher? You kind of like...
No, but okay, sub story. I went there and the guy who played Columbo was taking a gesture drawing class next to me. And I moved back to California to look for the place, and it was gone. But and the guy who was
place.
It was the best place.
Yes, that was the place. And yeah, that guy was there. And also the guy who played Biff from Back to the Future was there too.
And the teacher was the guy who was the head animator for The Simpsons. I can picture him too. Like, it was a who's who of artists. It was a great place.
Paul Wee.
Yes.
Still there.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was and the cool thing was through our union, you got free classes. So I was able just to go and I attended that, and I'm like, oh, there's a character design class. So I went and took that. But the teacher in there, he was just like, I don't even know why you're in here. And I'm just like, I just want to have fun and learn just different stuff. But he said, would you be interested in teaching? He ended up setting up his own school, and he convinced me to teach a class. He said, I think you could do it. And when I went and taught that class, I really feel like something magical happened and experience a feeling that I'd never felt before. And I remember driving home that night and telling my wife, I said, I know what I want to do the rest of my life. I want to teach. I want to be a teacher. But I was always kind of helping people, right? It was just part of my nature when I was doing caricatures. I was always had that sort of nurturing, just kind of, hey, let me kind of take you under my wing. Let me help you. So that was always kind of just there, for whatever reason, reincarnation. I don't know what I was in another life, but it was there. And from there, I had started, like so many other just great businesses, started out of my garage, like Steve Jobs and everything else. I had my garage and I started just teaching 6 students at a time out of that. And that was just posting on my blog, hey, I'm teaching, and people, signed up and came. And then a good friend of mine who became a great friend of mine had reached out to me, just connected with me. He was in Canada, named Bobby Chu, who had the School of Schoolism, reached out to me and asked me, do I want to be a teacher? So it was just him and myself. He started the school, but it was just the two of us teaching on his platform when it first started. And then it just led to me just doing more and more talks. Schools would be inviting me all the time to do guest lectures. And it just kind of kept building up that momentum. And I kept doing my school from home. And then I decided I want to start my own physical school. And I opened up a physical school in Sun Valley, which is near Burbank. It was a huge warehouse, and I had that for about 2 years. And then my landlord just kind of really was screwing with me and really screwed me out of the deal at the place that I was there. And I made the decision I need to find another place. And then when I was starting just to look for another place, really, then the pandemic stuff started to happen. But actually, right before then, I said, you know what, I'm just going to go back to teaching from my home. And I did that again. And then I realized, then the pandemic started. And then I'm like, I've always wanted to do something online, but I was afraid to kind of start it and do it. How am I going to do this? How much work? But then I just got focused, and I ended up building my Silver Drawn Academy all online and went there. And now, I'm starting to get back into doing live workshops and traveling again with all that. But so it was that progression, right? And it fuels me because I let people know that's what I do. I let people, I keep letting people know, hey, I'm doing workshops. If you want me to come to your school or that, and people, oh, okay. And so it just opens up those doors, but that's where it currently is now.
I love this story, Stephen. I just love how you even started out, like, it's how you meet people, right? And it's just meeting people. You don't realize that a creative, it's not a path. Our lives are not a path as creative people. They're this, right?
Yeah.
And it's accidents. My friend calls it, life is an accident. You just need to be prepared for when the accident falls in your lap.
Yeah. Or like Bob Ross would say, just happy little accidents, you know.
Yeah, happy little accidents. And I think you've hit on a big one too with this teaching art, because I mentor at my current job. My favorite thing to do is mentor. Like, you get to a phase where I just want to give this information out, right? This is my new creative passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still creative. Like, people don't realize this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's extremely creative. And I honestly believe, I've always believed that it should be the cycle of an artist's life where we're growing, right? In the very beginning, we're all young and we're eager and we're growing and we want to trying to figure it out. Do I want to be a painter? Do I want to be a sculptor? What do I want to do? And you start doing these things, you gain this knowledge. You eventually move into a career, you start making money from it, and you're doing that. But then I feel like it's the cycle of life where when you get to a point, I feel like we should be the teachers. We should be the ones now just spreading this knowledge and helping people get. It's just a full cycle, and that's what it is. We can't keep doing this forever. We're going to get to a point where something might happen with our eyesight, with our hands, or something else. And I think it's just a great transition and it feels great. One of my favorite books was by the Dalai Lama, and it's called The Art of Happiness. And really the gist of it, the art of happiness is when you're helping people, when you help people, that's when true joy and happiness comes from. And it's 100% true. Whenever you help someone in any way, there's a feeling of like, feels really good. And that's why I feel like as humans, we're supposed to do that. And I think it's, there's not always, again, there's a lot of great artists out there who just aren't teachers, who aren't good teachers. They're just like, I don't just do that. I can't explain my thought process. I just do it. Right. So there are some horrible art teachers out there, but it's not for everyone. But I do think it's part of the cycle of the artist's life for sure.
I always tell a story. John Romita Senior was in the office next to me, and I was like, how can I pay you back? And he's like, you do this for somebody someday. Like, you pass this information and knowledge on.
Yeah.
Okay. If I don't ask this question, I'll be mad at myself. Your style is so great. It's very angular and it's got nice curves on it, and it's got its own unique look. And I've even seen you talking on your academy, which, by the way, I signed up for. So everybody out there, I'm 52. Sign up because it's damn good. You were talking about your portfolio, you got to steal from the masters. Look at the masters, but don't put that in your portfolio, right?
Right.
Who are the masters? Who are the people that you stole from?
Al Hirschfeld was really one of my heroes. And you can say, like, for Kim Possible, really, because Al Hirschfeld, for any of those guys that don't know him, just very famous caricature artist, he's passed on now, but just brilliant line work. And I remember when I was studying him, I never knew how he actually did his line, but I thought he had these nice swooping lines and so beautiful. So I would mimic that with a brush pen, only to find out when I actually saw him draw, he just always just like chicken scratch those lines. There was never a fluid line, but because of that, I didn't know, but I learned something from that. But he was definitely an influence, I would say, in Kim Possible style, that fluidity, right? That was there. Again, my heroes were Mort Drucker, Jack Davis. And then on the illustration side was artists like Albert Dorn, Robert Fawcett, J.C. Leyendecker, Norman Rockwell, Frank Frazetta. All these guys were all people that I would just learn from. And that's, and to your point, I feel it's so important for artists in order to grow. It's good to study and copy these other artists. Again, you're not putting it in your portfolio, but how do they do hair? How do they draw hands? How do they do folds in clothing? How do they do that line weight? And just learning from these people is always going to guide you, and eventually you find your own voice. And I heard this great quote one time. I don't know who said it, but it was like, mimicry is the prerequisite to creativity. I thought that was just brilliant. By mimicking other people, other things, that's what you got to do that in order to have your own creative voice and do your own thing. And those who don't do that, I think you're missing out on something. But again, there is a whole art movement of naive. I call it like naive art or something like that, where just people that just no training, nothing, and they just do whatever they do. And that's an art form in itself. But it depends, where do you want to get to? How far Do you want to get up the ladder? And in this world of advertising, animation, you got to be good. You're playing with live ammunition, so to speak, and you got to be qualified. It's not just for the hobbyist. But if that's what you want to do it, but identify that.
I love that so much, Stephen, because I think something that I am a huge fan of around education is the idea of nuance, of being able to say, yeah, you want a job, you have to work really hard and be very, very good to be paid full time to just make art. However, if you just want to draw, like, none of this matters. It's like you just need to get started and just keep making art because you love it, as opposed to needing to monetize it. And then you're thinking about brand and you're thinking about storytelling and technique and practice and mileage and all networking, right? So I feel like you've given a ton of information for people who are looking to break into the industry. And if people want more, they can sign up for your school. For all of the people who are maybe on that other side of who are just, they are the hobbyists, what advice would you give to that person who just wants to maybe be more creative on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I'd just say find your people, who are your artists? Who do you like? What do you like? What do you enjoy? And you got to identify that, right? It's almost like where I met you, Chris, was at the DesignerCon, right? And it's just, there's a whole different audience there that's different from WonderCon or San Diego Comic-Con or other places. And I think that's the important thing, is just kind of have a sense of what you just enjoy. And then just immerse yourself in it, but still practice. You're like, some great place to go if you just want to study and copy other people's art is something like Pinterest, right? You can go to Pinterest and you can put in anything there, and you can put in humorous illustration or a cat drawings, giraffes, I don't know, whatever, flowers, whatever you like, and just practice drawing that and have fun. And it's always really just don't worry about it's all about just taking the action and not worrying about the outcome. Don't worry about the outcome. It's like fall in love more with the action than what the outcome is going to be. It doesn't matter if there is a result that comes from that outcome. That's awesome. But I think that's the most important thing to do for even the professionals. Just don't worry so much about what everyone else is doing. It doesn't matter. There's a couple of sayings. There's one that says, number one, what other people think about you is none of your business, right? So if anyone's saying stuff about you and your art, whatever they're going to say, it's none of your business. But I also love Oscar Wilde, and he said, be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. And that's just a really great one. And I think it's just for us, just to, again, if you're a hobbyist, just draw, just move that hand around. And if you want to take some lessons just for the hobby and the fun of it, do it. I have a lot of students that do that. They've told me they have no desire to work doing this professionally. They just want to draw. They've just always wanted to. They're engineers. They're this, they're that, the other. They just want to know, where do I start? And that's, like you mentioned, the most important thing is just start, and just, again, with no expectations. It's even better. It's more fun. And I would say to all those artists that are in between jobs, just keep creating for yourself, because all of a sudden that job's going to come again and you're going to be cussing, damn it, now I got to do this for this person and what they want me to do, right? So just enjoy the process of learning, right? And have fun.
You're right. It's always about having fun. And I'm really bad at that. Like, I was up till 2 a.m. last night trying to fix a drawing of a face and not having fun anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Which you're laughing because we all do that as creative people. I love the fact you're saying, just draw every day, and people who aren't as create and draw and just learn, because it goes back to what you're saying before. You can't control where you end up, right?
No.
It just happens, right?
Yeah. It's a great way, to be honest with you. If you can get to that place in your life, and I'm really there, I really am, but I've worked hard at it, just training my mind, just to move through every day in a form of surrender, to just kind of let it go and let it flow. And you don't know what's going to happen at any given moment. And so there's no point in wasting this time and energy thinking about results or outcomes of things when it's not even in your control. And if it does go that way, great. If it doesn't, great. But if you allow yourself just to merely just again, it sounds corny and stuff, but be as present as you can and just go through it. And here I'm struggling with this drawing. That's what I'm doing. I'm struggling with this drawing, or whatever it is. You just get through it. And then the next day, and it's amazing. There's a great book that I read a long time ago, which really triggered me in a great way. And it's called The Surrender Experiment. And the whole thing was his whole life. He started telling the story. He's in his 70s now, but all started when he was in his 20s, when he ended up just freaking letting go and just surrendering. And all of a sudden, day after day, different things would just happen. Oh, look at that. I wasn't expecting that. And that happened. Oh, he ended up building this multi-million-dollar business that just started with him one day walking into Radio Shack. And when computers were first coming out and had no idea about what it was, the computer, and just piqued his interest. He ended up being in Radio Shack for this one specific reason, and then it led to this and led to this. And I think if we can allow ourselves, and I'm just looking at the book behind you, Rick, which says trust, the future is trust, but it reminds me of the word just trust. If we can just trust that it's all kind of figured out. Now, again, it's not about religious or spiritual or any other level other than the birds kind of know what to do every day. The ants know what to do every day. The tree knows what to do every day. And everything else in life knows what to do every day. But the humans, all this chaos and madness. And another favorite quote of mine is it'll come to me, but he just says, I've had many problems in my life, many of which have never occurred. Right? So I've had many problems in my life, many of which have never occurred. Mark Twain said this. Yeah, I've had many problems in my life, many of which have never occurred. Right? All those things, scenarios, we're going into, oh my God, I'm going to get rejected. This is going to happen. It didn't even happen. So when you learn to let go of all that and free your brain, then you move through life a lot more smoothly and more enjoyably, and work on the things you want to work on, get better at the things you want to get better on, reach out to the people you want to reach out to. Just that's what it all comes down to.
I love all of this so much. This has been so fascinating, and I love your blend of both kind of mindset and philosophical advice with also the very practical nature for so many people who are looking to break into the industry. Stephen, where can people find more about you, your school, and like how can people get in touch?
Yeah, so really my school is the silverdrawingacademy.com. On LinkedIn, on Instagram, I'm just Stephen Silver 7 with a PH. So it's STEPHEN, Stephen Silver 7. And that's really a great place. I'm on LinkedIn, same thing. If you just put in my name on Facebook or LinkedIn, any of those, you'll find me and you can reach out to me there. Yeah.
Okay, before I get to the fun part of our show, I just cannot thank you enough for this, because the whole point, Rick and I started this podcast. We met at 3D Retro, the guys who run DesignerCon. And we're like, you know what our problem is? Every time we talk to some artists, they're like, oh yeah, I went to college and, now I'm the most famous artist in the world. Like no one ever talks about the work, right?
Yeah.
And you've been great. Like it's all about the work. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
How we like to end the show is on a kind of fun note. We allow our guests to have the final words of the show. So anything you want to say, last thoughts, it can be anything that's on your mind. It's all up to you, my friend.
Okay. Every time I do a lecture or a talk, so I wrote a book, I have it on my website. It's called Conquering the Artist Struggle. And this is just all about just different things that I struggle with, which I broke through, and get just to share that knowledge with artists. But I wrote a poem that I always like to end this with. And the poem is called As Long as You Are You. All right. And it goes like this. All I have ever done is enjoyed what I ever do. My mind was open. My mind was clear. I did not stop to think of fear. I open up my mind, think of an idea, put it into action, and see what will appear. It can never be a failure because I learned along the way. If I did not succeed, I'll try another day. Stay calm and smile. Enjoy the things you do. Life will get much better as long as you are you. Like, just have fun. Again, just be yourself. Just try what you want to try. Don't worry about keeping up with people. just explore, experiment, and just try to embrace and enjoy this as much as possible. We're not on this planet forever. Don't have a life of regrets at the end. Oh, I wish I would have started my own podcast. I wish I would have started my own YouTube channel. I wish I would have done this. Try just to do it and try. And at least, if it doesn't work out, you tried it, and you'll feel better for that.
Thank you for joining Rick and myself on another episode of Origins, A Creative Journey, a DesignerCon production. Please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, download and listen to us every place you get your favorite podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Origins, A Creative Journey, all one word. Drop us an email for thoughts, ideas, or maybe somebody you'd like us to interview at dconpodcast@gmail.com. And make sure you join us in Las Vegas for DesignerCon, North America's premier annual design convention. All the information can be found, including tickets, at designercon.com. Till then, enjoy your own creative journey.